Welcome, Julia. Yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you. Julia's the founder and CEO of ISeeChange, and I'll let her tell you more about the work that they're doing. But we're so thrilled that you are with us this afternoon in the middle of hurricane season. And yeah, in the middle of what's been a pretty crazy hurricane season. So without further ado, I will stop sharing and let's just make sure that you can also share your screen and take things over.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and try and do that right now. And it is loading.
Okay.
But assuming that you can see the logo. Good?
I think we're good. Thanks.
All right. So again, I'm Julia Kamari-Japkin. I'm the founder of ISeeChange, and for 15 years, I worked as a climate science reporter. I worked for the AP, the BBC, and did award-winning climate science and natural disaster coverage. I covered the Asian tsunami and Hurricane Katrina in the same year, bad year. But over and over, I saw the same things happening, which were that top-down, well-intentioned solutions were failing to meet and keep pace with local climate needs. So I'm going to give you a quick overview about our solution, which is a data-driven collaboration tool. And it's solving for this process. And in that, it's solving for this problem. But in the process, we are trying to activate and able to activate everyday people to address climate change, from understanding the problems in hyper-local details to modeling reliability and producing better civic engagement all in one swoop. So we are a community engagement and data platform for cities to combat climate change. I'm going to, of course, tell us why you guys are all no strangers to this unbelievable opportunity right now. When it comes to architecture and engineering firms, our cities, we're all looking at this incredible once-in-a-lifetime investment in our infrastructure, specifically between IJA and IRA. It's once in a lifetime. And basically we're here at this moment, but we're not really paying attention necessarily to like some long-standing issues when it comes to infrastructure design and development. So right now we know that our infrastructure is losing, to climate change in the billions of dollars. But one thing we are not really paying attention to is this loss that 1 in 5 public projects globally, not just here in the United States, is canceled or delayed because of environmental or social concerns of the community. That's 1/5 of that huge investment. Now, some of you are designers, worked on these projects, you kind of understand a little bit of the details of this process, but I'm just going to go ahead and take a couple of slides to go into better detail about this. We know that we're missing critical input in the public sector design process across the whole process, from the problem identification, from that initial 0 to 30% design, 60% design, 90% design moment, through that construction process. And then once our infrastructure is designed and built, we're not really monitoring and evaluating whether it was just doing what it was designed to do. And that really puts us on our back feet when it comes to new project design. So why is this happening? There's a lot of coordination issues. There's a lot of data centralization issues. Another kind of big issue is just even the process. We rely on currently model data, which is its own problem. But I just threw this slide in last second. So sorry, Justine, I was just like, oh, I just want to throw this one last slide in because I know this audience. When we're making decisions about infrastructure, we're not talking to real people in the places that live there. It's not efficient. It's not effective. They're not at the table. And even when you do invite them in, civic participation is a luxury. So the people who are most impacted by climate change are the ones who have 2 jobs and 2 kids and ain't gonna come to your workshop in the middle of a Saturday or an evening or city council meeting. So how can we solve for this? Well, that's ISeeChange. We're making it easier. We're a data engagement platform in one, and it's designed for engineers, municipalities, utilities, to collaborate directly with the public on solutions design. So we do 3 things really, really well. We make it easier for residents to provide technical data. We make sure that the right people are getting the right details to respond to those climate risks. And finally, we're engaging citizens as partners to generate the trust needed to accelerate public infrastructure solutions. So even the simplest of ISeeChange posts generate a wealth of qualitative and quantitative data. Our platform is providing real-time geosocial AI-enabled hyperlocal data. So we're syncing each post to local weather and sensor networks for additional layers of context and model validation. We've changed infrastructure designs with as little as 1% of a target community participating. So we like to say that 1,000 ISeeChange users are as impactful as 1 million Instagram users, because we're producing both the stories and the technical data that is missing in our mitigation and adaptation solutions design. So again, this is just a breakdown of what a traditional social media post might look like. But on our platform, we're actually collecting all of this data on top of what you would typically expect in a social media experience. We sync the platform to sensors. We have residents taking physical measurements, and they're of course providing the traditional kind of story and data-driven posts that really are quite informative. We have a 4-step process when we work with our communities. We are leveraging existing communication channels of our customers more efficiently. So that can be the municipality directly, the A&E firm, a research institute. Then we're working with the community to send real-time notifications during events. And that can be a real-time notification around a flood event, a heat event, an air quality issue, or it can just be design queries like, where are you seeing trees on your walk today that you would like more of? It can be very customized. Residents are doing this over time and tracking real-time weather and stories and adding data as we go through a process. And then that data is being aggregated alongside geospatial data, weather data, modeling data, and we're providing that back to our clients. Over time, the data networks are compounding and the engagement networks are compounding. So where have we done this before? Well, this was our first client. We worked with Stantec in the city of New Orleans. You may have heard of the Gentilly Resilience District. We worked on 2 of the 7 projects in the Gentilly Resilience District. And using ISeeChange, we targeted the same neighborhoods that the A&E firm was interested in engaging on behalf of the city. We were able to quadruple the amount of participation on our platform compared to the traditional engagement meetings where people came and drew on cards and like wrote their name down. And we trained those residents to track flooding. Over the course of 29 flood events, they collected data that demonstrated that the models that we were using, the stormwater models that we were using to design these projects originally, were underestimating flood impacts in low-income neighborhoods and overestimating flood impacts in wealthier neighborhoods. And as a result of that data, a remodeling, a recalibration of the models was done, and 4.8, I think it might have come down a little bit in the negotiation with HUD, over $4 million was reallocated to the lower income neighborhood as a result of that community source data. That project has gone into its 3rd phase of design. We are the engagement and data platform for that. But this is what happened after we started scaling this. So we are now the flood reporting tool for the city of Miami. We do this now for the Miami and now soon Miami-Dade County. Over the course of 3 storm seasons, we helped respond to real-time flood events. So the city started using ISeeChange to respond in real time to flood events. That same data is repackaged into grant applications. So we were able to generate a $20 million in grant money using data from inland communities who are native Spanish speakers. They're not on 311, they're not engaged. But using our tool and our platform, we're able to really help fill out the data that was missing in the stormwater modeling. So we are now expanding this to include some of our other applications like heat and trees and pollution mapping. And we're working across departments. Again, multiple departments receive ISeeChange data in real time, and it's used and packaged in different ways for different purposes. In terms of who we work with, I want to keep an eye on time because I know we have some really fun activities and questions. We have quite a bunch of folks working with us and supporting us. We're just early in our journey as a company. But the product was launched for cities and engineering firms and utilities just last year. So we're well on our way to making a dent in this process. This is when I normally like to go to a live demo, but we're short on time. And the demo usually involves real data that is personal and private. So I'm going to quickly run through, but if you would want a non-recorded version of this demo, please reach out afterwards. But again, for the users, oh, here comes Aaron. Aaron DeMaio is one of our star ISeeChangers, and I saw him enter the room, so I'm calling him out. So please chime in, Aaron, if you're feeling it. Using ISeeChange is as simple as traditional social media, but we're really hyper focused on the location of the user and what they saw, where they saw it. So we get down to the lat long as to where people are reporting from and how. That's very different from a traditional social experience. We also use AI to help tag our data. So this allows a story to be multi-purpose. So you can be talking about trash in a storm drain or trees that need to be planted in order to prevent flooding. And that is data that relates to two different things: trees and storms, trash and flooding. And those need to maybe go to different departments at a city or maybe used in different ways in design. Every word is coded on ISeeChange, and we use algorithms, our own proprietary ones, to sort and track the data. When we tag it storms and flooding, then it triggers a quantitative data measurement. So the most popular way to record flooding is, of course, how high did the flood get? We also ask, well, how long did it last? Because that's really important in the H&H model. We also have residents who are tracking rain with rain gauges in some of our communities. And that can be really critical during a flood event. We also make sure that our residents are learning as they use the platform. So we scrape lots of data sources to kind of give people a sense of, hey, how unusual is today? How unusual was that rain event? And that data is synced to people's posts so that they can track their posts over time, and individual members of the community can have their own individual records of how their weather and climate is changing, because our baselines are changing in ways that our models can't really account for very well. But residents are really eyes on the ground. We do sync the platform to different kinds of data feeds. So if a municipality is using a tidal gauge sensor or a LoRaWAN sensor network, we can do customized data syncs, and we do that for some of our clients. In terms of how our customers use us or our clients use us, we believe in every window door into the platform. So if you're a municipality or nonprofit or engineering firm and you need to have it come in through your platform, we can create that door for you. This is how the city of Miami advertises ISeeChange on their site. We also create custom landing pages. This was for the town of Whitby and their climate adaptation plan, which includes tutorials of the kinds of posts that would be useful to their planning process, the kinds of posts that would be useful to the city of Miami. We help do hyper-local training on our project pages. But when you do log in as a customer or a client, you get to see the actual data. We do not let the public access the hyper-local details, but our customers who are dedicated to making our infrastructure better and improving outcomes do get to see exactly where people post and at what level of data, at what level of intensity. We provide some analysis as well. We have an NSF SBIR grant actually to do higher level AI for our customers. And we're really excited about that. But this is what's being used in the field to respond in real time, as well as to look at patterns. We do send custom notifications, again, in-app messages, text messages, and emails. And our customers also get emails directly to their inboxes so that they don't have to log into the platform to be able to be updated on what people are saying how. And this is customizable as well. We get really excited when we see people engaging in real time. And this is the heart and soul for us. We're making this faster and easier for people like the city of Miami, who have to respond to often, pardon the phrase, inundation of posts at once, potentially during a hurricane event or a cyclone. But when people see their city, their engineering firms, their utilities responding to their posts like human beings, it makes a huge difference. We've seen people just that toxic narrative that is, we kind of carry forward with like, why isn't this getting solved, starts to change as we start to engage a lot more as human beings. That's something that we've seen change sentiment. We can actually measure that change on ISeeChange. We can also check on who's not talking. So for example, when it comes to engagement, the noisiest people in the room will always show up and be noisy. Well, let them talk on ISeeChange, but we can also see like who's not posting in what neighborhood. So when we were looking at Little Havana, for example, Aaron's on the call, we saw that there weren't enough people there. ISeeChange is available in Spanish. We sent out our community engagement manager to go and do some recruiting, reach out to local partners, and then a lot of data started coming in from that neighborhood. And that data was useful in the city's infrastructure applications. We do targeted surveys on ISeeChange. This is new that we're rolling out in limited ways with some of our project partners for that more like tactical, like we just need a quick survey. We know that's important to everybody, but the longer term data value is that kind of conversational data that we collect on ISeeChange. So again, if anyone wants to follow up with me directly, you can find me on julia@ISeeChange.org. The site is ISeeChange.com. We are a for-profit company that works kind of in a social, at a social benefit way, so to speak. I just butchered that, but we are a social impact company. We're here to make sure that these investments count while we have them, and to do them with, as efficiently and effectively as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it to Justine to ask me some questions. I do have some extra slides because she sent me some of the questions ahead of time, but I'm going to throw it to you.
Thanks so much, Julia. That was terrific. And I'm sure that everyone has questions. So I just want to mention, you can drop your questions in the chat. We have a Jamboard. I think the link is right there as well. So feel free to post a question there. And maybe just to look forward for a moment. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but in a few minutes, we're going to put everyone into breakouts of 3. And in those breakouts, we're going to ask, so this is why you need to start thinking about it now. We're going to ask you to find a recent photo on your phone or on your computer or on your wall, whatever is available, that relates to climate for you. And maybe you weren't thinking about climate change, and maybe you were specifically documenting something that you saw as an impact, or maybe the photo represents adaptation or mitigation in some way. So we're going to ask everyone to introduce yourself and your photo to the others in your breakout. And if you need a little bit more food for thought, I think Rose is going to tell us a little bit about a photo she took recently, if she has a moment.
I do have a moment, and I'll see I can pop the photo in the chat. I downloaded it today. But my photo is of 2 weeks ago. I live in Portland, Oregon, where it is now cold. There's no more sweater, but we had 2 weekends in October that were 84 degrees. I went to the Japanese gardens, and it's a photo of trees not changing color. We didn't see the color change until much later this year, just because we didn't have any cold nights. So it's me and my daughter looking at a koi pond. The Japanese neighbor behind us should be a deep, dark purple, and it is still quite green in the photo. Amazing. And we're wearing, which also is not normal for October in Portland.
I love that photo and story. And to me, it represents 3 really critical things. One, connection with you and your daughter and where you like to connect, and doing that in a Japanese garden, and knowing that that place brings you joy, and that that's a place that you are making observations. That is critical, right? That 2, that the growing season is changing, and our expectations about what we expect to see in those places is changing. So we have lots and lots of people all around the world. I forgot to mention that we have users across 118 countries. We do not have customers or clients in 118 countries. Most of our clients and customers are in the United States. But you can have an international conversation about change with people all around the world, and it is full of joy and full of surprise. And that is where we see things like, people talking about trees changing, the growing season changing. And 3, what does that kind of mean in terms of an infrastructure design? Well, what kinds of trees should we be planting for our future? How are the leaf changing habits changing when it comes to collecting that leaf debris for a municipal employee, or a park maintenance crew. All of that has a cost and has an impact. And we are involved in a lot of urban tree efforts. We have one here in New Orleans where we are tracking trees and their stormwater impacts for an EPA grant, and actually measuring how much water may be coming into the drainage system or pollution. But you know, a lot of that depends on those leaves. Actually, leaf and tree canopy is a big part of that. So it's really interesting, and that's how we start to think about stories and data like that.
Thanks. Yeah. I wonder, maybe picking up on that, can you tell us a little bit about how the platform has evolved in terms of the kinds of data that you initially were collecting, and how the projects have pushed you to change over time?
Yeah, I mean, the evolution of ISeeChange is very nonlinear, but the trend is in this right direction. So I was, again, a climate science reporter. I invented ISeeChange as a public radio reporter. And I got a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting 10 years ago this year to, and it was because I was living in DC, and in the Obama administration, I spent a lot of time with some of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, John Holdren's team, and I gave him a really hard time one night drinking. I said, hey, 2011, $1 billion disaster year. What's the holdup, Team Holdren? Why can't we get adaptation through Congress? And the advisor said, you know what, we can't go to a congressperson and say, this is how much climate change costs a district. At the time, attribution science was really terrible. Infancy, not even born. So narrowing down from climate models into individual districts, individual stories, was something that I was struggling with as a journalist. If you cannot link climate change to everyday impacts, and again, we're 10 years out of this conversation now, we know everyday impacts are happening. But at the time, it felt really abstract. So most of the idea was like, hey, if we're doing this top down instead of bottom up, why can't everyday people say, hey, I think this is climate change, and take a picture of it? And then they would bring it to me, and then I would bring a scientist in to talk to them about it. So that was a citizen journalism application. And we developed ISeeChange in rural Western Colorado, in a town of coal miners who did not believe in climate change. There was also hippie farmers and ranchers and skiers. It was amazing. And we learned incredible things. The community was ahead of drought by 8 months. They reported fires in the snow the spring before, the winter before Colorado almost burnt down in parts. They were reporting on dead birds on the street before a nationwide epidemic of West Nile virus. And so NASA paid attention to what we were doing. They said, hey, this is really cool. They had me on a great speaker tour, but they didn't fund us. Nobody funded us for 4 years. I got my first contract from NASA in 2015, and it was a public science application. And we built it out, and people all around the world started using it. But we missed what was happening in that tiny town in rural Western Colorado. And in 2017, a funder challenged me and said, you know what? What about flooding? How is ISeeChange going to make a dent in the real world? Try flooding. And so that was that story that I told you about working in the Gentilly Resilience District in New Orleans. And that's when we realized that ISeeChange actually had technical data that could be really useful in infrastructure design. And that is when we became a company. So we are now a for-profit company. We do this, contract to contract with cities, engineers, and utilities. We do work with nonprofits as well, and researchers.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an amazing transition from the observations and reporting in Western Colorado to the New Orleans and Miami projects now.
It's very flexible. But we figured out lots of synergies. Like, drought is the opposite of flooding, right? Rain is still really hard to predict in any given place.